watch the recording. My name is Asia Simpson. I am your wellness and benefits consultant. I support your benefits department as well as all of you there at Greenfield Union School District. If you came to the open enrollment last week, that was wonderful. I had a great opportunity to meet many of you. And so thank you for those of you who were able to come on out. Today's session is going to be a little bit different than what we've done before in the past. This is really going to be around addressing, understanding what your options are when you experience challenges with your health plan. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth today around what types of challenges we're referring to. And so I'll go over what some of the resources are for you, and it's going to be in reference to what you can do through the state of California if you run into any challenges. And so we're going to go over that today. And if you did attend the open enrollment session, then you know that there is a wellness passport that Mindy has passed out to you all. And there are several different things that you guys can do throughout the year, including your joining and participating in today's session. If you are to do 8 activities out of that wellness passport, that will get you entered into a drawing for a $200 winning. Today's session, though, your participation can get you in the winning for a $20 gift card. So stay tuned, hang around, and make sure you participate, because you could win today, and it could also, your participation today could also help get you into a drawing that Mindy is going to be announcing later in the year. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started on today's session. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. For those of you who are just popping in, I'm seeing people join now. Today's session is going to be recorded. So if for whatever reason you have to drop off a bit early, or you joined a little bit late, or maybe you just want to review the content that we have covered, that we will be covering in today's session, again, for your reference, you'll be able to review that in the recording that will be sent out after the session. Included in the recording will also be the resources from today's session, which will be the presentation deck. If you can, just help me out a little bit. If someone can take themselves off mute, or just raise their hand, or give me the thumbs up and let me know that you can actually see my screen here. Can you guys see my screen? Otherwise, I'm going to assume that you can't see it. Perfect. Thank you, Miss Esmeralda. Appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started today. So I talked about today's session being about what can you do when you're experiencing challenges with your health plan. And what this session is really going to be talking about is if you have experienced issues in terms of maybe you have had some treatment and you were diagnosed with a particular diagnosis in terms of your health, and you do not necessarily agree with the treatment regimen or the treatment direction, you are able to contact one of the California state agencies that we're going to discuss today and request an independent medical review. Or if, on the contrary, it's not with regards to a treatment regimen, maybe you have an issue, and we'll look at some of those issues, a variety of different issues that you have not been able to get resolved with your health plan. You can submit a complaint through this state agency to get some resolution on that. And so we're going to walk through the differences between a complaint and an independent medical review, what the different types of complaints will qualify for you to submit, and what that process looks like, because it's not complicated. It can sometimes seem daunting to people if you don't really know what it is and what the purpose of it is. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about it, and I'm going to show you the web page so that you are familiar with what that looks like. So first things first, we are going to talk about insurance health plan type, which is going to be relevant to you understanding like which agency you want to be making sure you reach out to, and so you don't get confused with who you need to be reaching out to, and who the CDI is, which is going to be the agency that we're talking about. We'll go over the difference between what a complaint versus an independent medical review is that I just mentioned before, and the steps on how to submit either a complaint or an independent review. What are some of your resources? And then, of course, along the way, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have along the way as well. Okay. You are free to ask questions by taking yourself off of the chat and voicing your opinion or your questions, using your microphone, or you can submit something through the chat. So I'll be monitoring both. Okay. All right, so first things first, insurance health plan type. So if you attended the Comparing Your PPO Plan webinar that I did, or you came to open enrollment, then you know that all of the plan options that are offered to you through Greenfield Union School District are PPOs. And PPOs, just in short, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this piece because we did a whole workshop on it. But PPO is the abbreviation for Preferred Provider Organization. And it's essentially a type of health plan where you pay less if you see providers inside your plan networks. But you can still see providers that are outside of your network. So by network, I mean all your plans are offered through CVT, and they are Blue Shield plans. So basically, in-network means any doctor facility that is contracted with Blue Shield, you pay less if you see someone who's contracted with Blue Shield. But you're not limited to that, because we all know that sometimes not all providers or not all facilities that you need to see will be contracted, but you do have the flexibility with this type of plan to see them whether they're in or out of network, okay? So it will generally cost a little bit more. And if you want to know more details about that and how that works, please see the recording of the session that we did on how to use your PPO and comparing your plan options. Okay, so I'm going to refer you to that. So the plan options, just so you know, just a quick refresher, are 2B, 5B, 6B, 8B, wellness, and bronze. And these plans are going to vary based off of your co-pays, deductibles, co-insurance, and out-of-pocket max. So that's just a quick refresher. Again, more details in that other presentation. Why that matters is because you need to know who regulates the PPOs, who, from a state standpoint, makes sure that these PPO plans, like a Blue Shield, they follow guidelines that are set by federal and state. Each plan that is set up has to have certain guidelines that they follow. One of those things that you may have heard me talk about is all plans must offer preventative care services free of charge. So there are some services that are built into every single plan, and they're required to make sure that they adhere to that and provide you those services. So what happens if something happens where they don't provide those services, or they violate some type of state or federal policy? The California Department of Insurance regulates the PPOs. Now, we're not doing any content on HMOs because those are not offered for you guys. So I don't want to spend time confusing you, but I do want to mention that you want to make sure that for the purposes of your plans that you have through Greenfield, that if you're ever going to file a complaint or you're going to request an independent medical review, that you're going to the California Department of Insurance website, because there is another regulating body that regulates HMOs, but that doesn't apply to you, okay? So what I would like to say is, a lot of people don't really understand how these regulating bodies can help you. So there are a variety of different ways, okay? And we're not going to cover all of these ways because, well, frankly, we don't have enough time in this session. But I do it's worth mentioning to you. We already talked about how we're going to cover the fact that you can file a complaint against your health plan. You can also submit complaints against providers if you are experiencing some very poor service through providers that is just completely unacceptable, and you've not been able to get any resolution or any help from your health plan. You can submit complaints to the California Department of Insurance against a provider or a facility. You can also do things like research insurance options and more. And again, we're not going to explore in detail all of these different other things that you can do with the California Department of Insurance in detail on this site. But what I am going to do is I'm actually going to stop share on this for a minute because I just want to take a quick second because I want to make sure that you all understand what it looks like, the website looks like. So I'm going to pull the website up here. I've actually got it pulled up, and I'm going to share the website with you guys so you can see what it looks like. And what you'll be able to do is, and I'm going to actually, in the resources area of this presentation is the link for this web page. So if I could get just a thumbs up here or there, just so I can make sure you guys can see my internet browser that I'm sharing with you guys. Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, so this is what the web page looks like. If you were to click on the link right out of the presentation, and it would bring you to the web page, this is where it would first bring you. So I clicked on the little home page, the home box, just so you can see what the home area looks like. And so as you can see, there are a lot of different headers here, but one thing I want to make sure you know where to go. So file a complaint. If you hover your mouse over it, see if it'll do it again. I was just doing it a second ago. Okay, so if you notice, if you move your mouse across the top of the headers, you'll see all these different drop downs. File a complaint is where we're going to be discussing today. And then we will also be discussing today independent medical reviews. So if you hover your mouse over file a complaint, it'll take you to file a complaint page. But if you hover your mouse over consumers, you can also get that link. But you can also find that there are a lot of different other links for information. So this information will help you not only find out more details about the steps to file a complaint, but also it'll provide you with information on, let's just say you want to check the license of a provider or a doctor. And you might ask the question, well, why would I want to do that? Well, sometimes when people are looking to switch providers, sometimes they want to make sure they're legitimate, or, not everyone cares about those things. But for some who do, this is a resource for you to be able to check their license status to make sure they haven't had any violations. You can get some education on the different types of insurance. We talked about PPOs because those are the ones that are applicable to all of you based off of the plan options that are available. But there are some other information here on other different plan types. And if you are looking for health insurance information just in general, let's just say you forget about that I did a presentation on how to compare your PPOs and how to utilize it. There's information here as well. But there are other bits of information that are on this page that may be helpful for you. It is with regards to information just on different insurers. And by insurers, what I mean is there are different types of insurances out there. Like property insurance, all different types of insurance. And you can find information like that here. But more than anything, I wanted to make sure you guys know that this is the page where you would go to file a complaint, and you would simply click on the link. And this is a very simple page. So, you really don't have to worry about trying to figure out what's what. It really pretty much shows you, if you're not online savvy, you can always call. Just contact them. They will walk you through the process on how to do that. And under consumer complaints, this is where you would go to click the link. Everything on this site is easy to access, but I will tell you, it's always going to be faster if you submit any of the actions that you need done, whether it's filing a complaint or requesting an independent medical review. It's always going to be faster if you do it online. Okay, so we're going to talk about that more in detail later. But there's also a video that you can watch. So I've actually linked it in today's presentation. So if you are just really feeling a bit overwhelmed, which you may not, because this is relatively simple, but everybody's learning ability is on different levels, and there's no shame in that. But I included a link for you to be able to watch the video, and they create a video to just kind of show you what the process looks like to file a complaint. But if you just rather stick old school with everything and do everything paper, there are printable complaint forms that you can always fill out, and you can mail those in. So On the right-hand side, you'll see just a lot of different information, again, that doesn't necessarily apply specifically to your health insurance, but this is a wealth of information. And so when we're talking about what are the other things that the California Department of Insurance can help you with, can it help you with anything beyond your health insurance? Yes, it can. So here's some information. You can learn, you can get educated on laws and regulations and all different types of information. But the website is insurance.ca.gov, okay? And when you get to the site, if you have a hard time, you can always call the 800-927-4357, okay? So we're going to go back to the presentation deck. I just wanted to take a second to show you all what the actual page looked like in terms of, how do you get there and what information you can find when you get there. So I'm going to stop share on this and reshare the presentation so we can hop back into the content that we are covering today. Just bear with me 1 second while I share screen. All right, so we've got that back up and hopefully you guys can see the screen. So this is where we left off, is what can you do with utilizing the California Department of Insurance? And because that's a mouthful, if you guys hear me refer to this as CDI, that is what I'm referring to, okay? Because it is a pretty long title. So complaints and independent medical review. So I mentioned there's a lot of different things, and as I said before, for the purposes of today's session, we're going to focus on filing a complaint and requesting an independent medical review, okay? Now, we'll start off with submitting a complaint. So first things first, what I want to mention to you is that if you've ever had an issue with your health plan, health plans are actually required by law to have a grievance process set up, built into your health plan. So if any one of their members run into any issues, they are required by law to have that process built into the plan. If you recall me saying before that the California Department of Insurance is tasked with making sure they oversee and ensure that health plans adhere to policies, both state and federal. This is one of those things, is having a grievance process built into their plan. And in most circumstances, you are required, before you utilize the CDI, you're required to file your grievance first, your issue with the health plan first, to get a response back from them. Because what can happen is either A, if you file a complaint through your plan, something isn't right, you don't like the result of what you got back, or maybe a service was denied. If you file a complaint, there is the potential that maybe the health plan will resolve it without the CDI having to get involved. However, even if the health plan responds, if you don't like the response, when you go to the California Department of Insurance, you can submit a complaint or an independent medical review for a second opinion on that denial. So that's why it's important for you first to start with your health plan and go with them and submit through Blue Shield, your grievance process. And if you ever get confused about, well, what is that process like? You want to call the customer number on your Blue Shield card, or if you don't have that information, I can make sure I get that to you. They do have a customer service, what they call concierge, that can help you with that process as well. Now, there are certain circumstances, though, where if it is an immediate threat to your life and your health plan has not been responsive, or they have denied a request for some type of procedure or medication, and maybe they denied it because they said it's experimental or investigational, and you need to know right away, well, that's a situation where you may not be able to wait 30 days. And in those circumstances, you don't have to go through the process of doing that. And I'm sure you have the question, well, how do I know whether or not this will qualify? Your best thing is always going to be to call the 800 number and speak with someone, and they will help you weed through that process of whether or not you should go through the steps of submitting your complaint. So when in doubt, call, okay? And either of these instances, like I mentioned, you can seek assistance through the California Department of Insurance by giving them a call, okay? So I want to stress the importance of that and the fact that you have that resource. The second thing I want to mention about complaints is, okay, so I said always call, but just to kind of give you an overview, here are some of the issues that can be resolved through the consumer complaint process with the California Department of Insurance. So let's just say your plan improperly denied or delayed settlement of a claim. So sometimes what happens is you go to your doctor submits, you have a service, they submit to Blue Shield, request for payment for the service they provide. And sometimes there could be a delay in them in paying your provider. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced your provider coming back to you and saying, hey, your insurance plan didn't pay. Some people have experienced that, some may not have, but this could be that could be an instance of where you could submit a consumer complaint against the plan. Health claims that have been denied by the health plan because the service or the treatment is not covered under the contract. You can submit that as a complaint, but what I want to make sure you understand is that for the general, in general, you want to typically submit complaints or requests for independent medical reviews for services that are typically covered in your plan. Some people, this is not basically the platform to get additional services added to your plan. This is if you have services that you're entitled to for the most part, and it's denied or you're having issues with that. You can submit complaint for legal interpretations of policy language, provision, and terms. Sometimes policy language isn't very clear on what is covered. So this could be that could be an example of what can be submitted. Bad faith allegations and or other demands for extra payments under your health plan contract. So you're being asked to pay more than what you're supposed to, either by the plan or by your provider. Alleged illegal cancellation or termination of your policy, misrepresentation by agent, broker, or solicitor, alleged theft of premiums, and issues with providers, medical groups, and pharmacies. So we mentioned this. So this does include pharmacies for those of you who might have a question on that. So yes, it does include being able to submit complaints against pharmacies as well. So just note that. So, all right. So now here's the question. When filing a complaint, how do you do it? What are the ways you can do it? You can, as I mentioned before, the fastest and most effective way by far to submit your complaint is online. But if you're just simply not comfortable with that and you don't have access to internet on a regular basis, you can always do, a download of the form, fill it out by hand, and you can mail it in. Okay, so that is an option. Now, if you are mailing or faxing in your complaint, you're going to want to download, print it, and complete the complaint form. There's not really a fax number that I know of. There may be one on the form. We can take a look at that here. But if you're submitting it online, as opposed to doing it manually, they do have an online platform for which you will need to create a profile. And the benefit to creating a profile is once you submit your complaint, you can track the status, and there's other good information inside your profile that you can access regarding your complaint, where you are in the process, and other additional resources. So just in general, consumer complaint decisions are usually provided within 30 days from the California Department of Insurance. Okay. So before I move on to independent medical reviews, I just want to do a quick check-in with you all to make sure there aren't any questions on the information that we've covered thus far. Was there any questions or anything that you guys needed clarified before I move on to the independent medical review piece of things? Okay. All right, I don't see anything in the chat box, so I'm going to assume everything's pretty clear so far. All right, so let's start off first with what is an independent medical review. So an independent medical review is essentially a process in which an expert independent medical professional who is not associated with your health plan is selected by the California Department of Insurance to basically review your situation, your medical history, what the decision was that your insurance company went with in terms of what they would approve for your treatment regimen. And they take a look at that, and then they have that, the expert independent medical professional takes a look at that, and they decide whether or not, okay, that makes sense, the denial makes sense, or no, it does not make sense. And you, as the member, are justified in your what your request is. And if your health plan denies your request for the service, you can file the process with your health plan first, as I mentioned, because you have to go to the grievance process first. And then once you have done that and you go to the California Department of Insurance and you submit your request for this independent medical review, if it rules in your favor, then what that means is that your health plan can be compelled to go with what the favorable decision is in, that you are interested in going. So that is a benefit, because you do have a good chance when you submit through the California Department of Insurance to potentially get the independent medical review ruled in your favor. So it's worth trying it. It's worth going through the process. And there's no charge to you to do this process. This is offered free of charge for all of you who go through the process and set up your profile. So there's no fee for you to do this, okay? The California Department of Insurance is doing this for you free of charge, okay? So your request will qualify for IMR if your health plan denies, modifies, or delays service or treatment because they deem it not medically necessary. And sometimes that does happen. Sometimes you want a particular service or treatment and they say it's not medically necessary. If you've ever experienced this, sometimes you may have had to get various documentation from your provider. Either your provider doesn't feel like doing it or they provide it and it's still denied. It might qualify if it will not qualify if an experimental, well, it says it will not cover an experimental or investigational treatment. This is from the website. What I would suggest to you is to contact them at the 800 number, because this is a very general bullet. Each situation is very, very, very unique. So I would contact them at the 800 number because they can verify whether or not, it is experimental. Your particular situation with experimental or investigational treatment is going to qualify or not. Because what can happen is the plan may deem it as experimental or investigational, but when the independent medical professional looks at it, they may have a different opinion. Okay. It will not pay for emergency or urgent medical services that you have already received. So they can't do an independent medical review if you've already received the service. So that would technically, if you're running into issues for services or that you've already had, you may want to submit a complaint as opposed to an independent medical review. Okay. The IMR process cannot be used for an insurance company decision that is based on a coverage issue. Again, complaint is where you may want to go. That's where calling them, if you have any questions on which one you should submit, can be very, very helpful. I've mentioned this before. You do want to go through your health plan's appeals and grievance process first before submitting either an IMR or a complaint, okay, to see if the plan will resolve it first. Okay, so this is very similar to filing a complaint in terms of the ways to submit it. So you can submit it online or you can submit it by mail. Again, the fastest way is online. The process is going to be very, very similar. You do still have to go to the online platform that the CDI has set up where you create your profile. And again, you will be able to track the status of your IMR in that online platform once you have your profile set up. So essentially what will happen is, once you go through the process of setting up your profile and submitting your complaint through the system, what will happen is you will receive an acknowledgement letter, or you will see the notification in your profile letting you know that hey, we got your request, okay? And then what happens is if it's a non-emergent or non-expedited IMR request, meaning it's not detrimental to your immediate health right now, then typically they have up to 45 days to make a decision. Now, for expedited IMR decisions, they will typically provide a decision 7 days after the case has qualified for an IMR and the appropriate documentation has been received. So part of this process is once they get your request, they have 7 days to let you know that they got it. And then they go through a process of vetting it to make sure that it does qualify for an IMR. So if it is not, as I mentioned before, something that is detrimental to your immediate health right now, then they have 45 days to get the information, let you know whether or not it qualifies. But if it's expedited, they will do that within 7 days after they have determined that it is IMR qualified and they've gotten all of the documentation that they need in order to make that determination. Were there any questions before I hop into any of the resources? No questions? Okay. So let's take a quick look at the resources here. So what I've provided on here is the website, which is we took a look at earlier at insurance.ca.gov. We've got the telephone number. And then what I've included in here is the actual downloadable PDF for both the complaint form as well as the IMR form. And for those of you who may be considering submitting a complaint or your IMR online, and feel a little bit uncomfortable about it, go ahead and take a look at you can either take a look at the website yourself and play around with it. This link is also on the website, but I have embedded it into this presentation just for easy access. You can always review it and it will take you step by step through what this process looks like. And when you submit it online, part of the process is the steps are going through and getting all of your demographic information, your name, address, and all of that, setting up your passcode, and then they start to ask you more detailed information. Really depending upon your internet savvy and your internet speed and the availability of all of your information, that if you have it readily available, this process shouldn't take you any more than about 10 minutes to do. So it could take, if even that, it could take longer, if you don't have the information. And just know that they may ask for additional documentation in some circumstances. And so you want to make sure that you have access to that from your computer by, it's typically similar to attaching documents to an email. It's the same way in terms of, locating the file and attaching it to your request. And so you'll see that if you look through the video. If you are really struggling and you don't really want to contact them by phone and you just need some help, you just prefer to talk to someone you're welcome to always reach out to me, and I'm happy to set an appointment with you for us to walk through the process. And I'm always happy to help you all with this process. I've done a similar process myself, not through the California Department of Insurance, but for me, it was the California Department of Managed Healthcare, which regulates HMO. My personal plan is an HMO. So please let me know should you have any questions, and I'm happy to assist you with any of that. Were there any questions?